Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Stranger Things Season 4, Episode 7, the mid-season finale. A great episode, a great way to end off Part 1 to Season 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's start off with the whole Hopper situation. Him and Anatov, they're preparing for their battle against the Demogorgon, and they kind of get into this whole conversation about, like, right, what are our chances? Anatov's giving them, like, a chance of 1,000 to 1, so you might as well start praying, but it's like, man, that's not really, it's not really, Hopper's bag. But I think it's interesting when he talks about, because him and Anatov, you know, they bond over like their children. It's like, oh yeah, if Mikhail's not going to believe I killed the monster, he's like, oh, that American did most of the slaying, didn't he? And it's like, yeah, Hopper has the same situation where 11. He's like, before I left, she wanted nothing to do with me. And that's the sad thing of, he wasn't there for the aftermath, obviously, but after she believed he died, you know, she finally read your letter, but I loved what he was saying, that, you know, it's every parent, no child wants to basically end up like their parent. They do everything they can to kind of become like, because he's almost like, oh, it's almost full circle, because, her hating him, he's like, it almost makes sense because I didn't like my dad. I want to do everything not to be my dad. And he says that he hopes that Elle has followed in that path and isn't following like her old man, that she is able to kind of make it on her own, which I think that's the ironic element of, she is listening to her OG papa, and he's kind of leading her down a certain path, but he's hoping that she's making her own way and forging her path, basically making her own choices, which she kind of is, but she's being influenced by her papa, so. But when the time comes, Murray and Joyce and the real Yuri show up. And I love Murray putting on the whole Yuri personality, just like crazy laughter and stuff. So it seems like everything works out. I love when he's pulling out the gun. He's like, oh, hi, I'm Yuri. Nice to meet you. And just like, ha! And Joyce is like, stop playing with the gun. He's like, I'm not playing, I'm practicing. So they have to watch as the whole thing with the Demogorgon goes down. And of course the lighter wasn't going to light when you needed it to. But unfortunately, a lot of people got sliced and, like, eaten. Once again, it's like, we've never seen the Demogorgon really eat like that. I don't think we have. But that was brutal. Like, they didn't show you the aftermath, because, once again, it's like, you forget, like, it's, once again, this came up with the whole Doctor Strange thing of like, wow, you can get away with a lot in a PG-13 in some cases, and it's like, right, even a TV-14, I kind of get, it always kind of baffles me sometimes when it's like, wow, you can get away with a lot more than you think you could with a TV-14. Like, granted, all you had to do was not show the aftermath of that one dude, or the Demogorgon ended up eating a lot of people's heads, but like, it chomped on one dude's head, but the camera, like, it kept chomping for a few seconds, and then the camera pulled away. So I think as long as you don't see the aftermath, as long as you imply the aftermath, that's all you need to not, like, turn this into, like, a mature rating type of thing. But, the Demogorgon, I mean, they even said it before, like, the guy that was around for the past week was like, oh yeah, like, that thing rips through people like crazy. Because even, the guard was like, oh, I even love the whole thing of like, yeah, to make sure they don't have more time to prepare, it's like, oh, you can only go when the alarm blares. If you move before then, we will shoot you. So it's like, right, they're trying to make this a fair competition, even though the odds are automatically stacked against you, because that Demogorgon moment got released, took a second to get on top of people, sliced through 3 people like it was nothing, tossed people around like they're rag dolls. So the only one, sadly, who survived the encounter is Anatov and Hopper. I was scared Anatov wouldn't make it. I mean, they did a whole thing of setting up the whole situation with his son, so you would hope that everything would work out, but you're still like, I don't know, it could be a thing of, he's like, his final words to Hopper, find my son, tell him I wasn't a bad guy, tell him I was a good guy in the end. Like, that could have easily been the situation. Luckily, Murray and Joyce were able to, well, not only take that commander hostage, but they were trying to get the gate open, but the guy was like, no, if I do this, I won't be just dooming myself, I'll be dooming all my comrades. So you got to appreciate the patriotism and also concern for your comrades, but also at the same time, I'm like, shut up and open the gate, because we don't care about you, we care about Hopper and Anatol. But like I said, from a different perspective, it's like, right, that even he's like, oh, you commies, you it's admirable what you're doing, but luckily they opened the gate, and and they were able to slip through that Anatov and Hopper were able to slip through the gate, and they were able to close it back. Your boy going full-blown javelin and throwing the spear in the Demogorgon's face. The problem is that bastard's going to be super irritated after that, and it's already super hyped up, and because one of the guards was like, oh, let's kill this thing before him, but he was like, no, he was going to go ahead and kill Hopper, and Anatop was like, no, let that thing have its fun, like, let it eat them. But now it's like, yeah, I mean, it got its killing out, but who knows, like, if they end up opening all the doors, it's probably, you're not going to be able to put that genie back in the bottle. That thing is probably going to be super antsy. Bullets ain't going to do jack squat, as we know, and that thing is going to rip through everyone there. Hopefully they could probably get the other prisoners out and make it a little bit of an easier an escape of getting away from it, but things are going to get complicated on that front. But at the very least, they have a single moment of peace where Joy and Hopper are able to hug. It's like, right, reunited after all of this, been through hell and high water, but here we are, we somehow made it and we're okay. So once again, what the aftermath is going to look like is going to be interesting, because alright, so we got a little squad of Hopper, Joyce, Murray, Yuri, he's still tied up, and Anatov. Once again, there are other prisoners here that I don't think those are the only other prisoners there. Like, I'm pretty sure there are more than them. I think. I'm fairly sure, because of all the ones that were working on the track. So there's still others that could probably get released, and it's like, right, we need to get out of here. So once again, that plane doesn't work not unless they know how to fix up the plane to make it flyable, because they need to get out of here fast. But also, like, Anatov can't leave because this is his home country, and if he's lucky enough, anyone who knows of him as a traitor is dead in that facility by that Demogorgon the moment it gets a chance. So hopefully that works out for Anatov. We'll see. Like I said, fingers crossed, hoping that he makes it out into alive, but there's a good chance he doesn't. So all the while that's happening, we're getting everything in Hawkins and the lab. We don't even check in on Mike and them since last episode, but we're focusing on the lab and Hawkins. Let's start off in Hawkins first. The fact is that, you know, we're picking up with Steve's situation. He's getting messed up, but luckily Nancy, Robin, and Eddie come in. They do some work, and I love that your boy, Steve gets the final blow. He's slamming it back and forth. I'm like, yes, Steve. Slams it on the ground, grabs it, and then rips it. I do appreciate the fact that Eddie makes a reference, and oh, how very Ozzy of you. Where Steve is like, what? He's like, Ozzy Osbourne. He bites the head off of bats on stage. Okay, he did it. At the very least, let me just say, it was super metal of you to do that. Everyone getting in their kills against those things was pretty dope. But they're kind of stuck in the upside down because those things are guarding the way. So it's like, well, okay, so where do we go from here? Steve is kind of super messed up and covering his wounds and everything. But I thought it was interesting too how Eddie talks about it too, and this is, Robin had this revelation last season as well about how, oh wow, Steve isn't the douchebag that everyone thinks he is, because it's like, right, he was a cool guy, he was a douche, and now it's like, right, you actually are cool. He even talks about what sparked that was, and he's like, yeah, Dustin talks about you all the time. It's like, wait, he does? Because Eddie's like, yeah, I was a little jealous of him, because it's like, yeah, the fact is that he could think that you are actually a good person was kind of wild to me. So I'm a little jealous, which obviously is funny because Steve was jealous anytime. It's like, no, like because Dustin's like his best bud. Because, well, other than Dustin, we don't know who, like, it doesn't seem like Steve really hangs out with anyone else. Like, all his other close friends were, like, bully people and he hasn't interacted with them since season 1. So Dustin's become his best bud in a regard. You know, it's not just like, oh, I'm a babysitter. There's that element, but it's also just like he enjoys, like, yo, like, because I think Dustin saw him from, like, oh, you're actually pretty dope, and he actually sees Dustin for being pretty dope, so. I thought that was kind of a beautiful element and a moment between him. And he also brings up the fact is that it's like, right, do you know why I came down here? Because Eddie's like, I'm not the hero type. As you've seen, as I've discovered about myself, I'm the running type. But the reason why I came down here isn't because I'm the hero. It's because those two ladies, they rushed in with you. And especially Nancy, she, without hesitation, is like, right. That's kind of the one. That's true love. Even through my cynical eyes, I can see that as true love. So I recommend you try getting her back. So, I mean, once again, we've been feeling that energy between Nancy and Steve, and now it's like, right, do you act upon it? Because both of you are definitely feeling it. She's feeling it because of the distance between her and Jonathan, but it's like Steve still has feelings for her, so does he operate? Does he like jump on those? So, it's not just, Robin's kind of pushing him towards it, or at least pointing it out. Dustin's pointing it out. Now Eddie is too. It's, there's no, like, at this point, other people are noticing it, so it's making it harder and harder to deny it. So question is, what is Steve going to do? But they've got one issue to deal with at a time, so they've got to deal with because initially they were going to Nancy's house because it's like, right, they need guns. Because it's like, right, we're in this world, so if there's guns here, that means we can, if there's guns in our world, we don't even have to go to the police station. I have guns at my, it's like, wait, Nancy, you have guns in your house? It's like, yeah, and probably after everything that's going down, it's like, yeah, you kind of need to keep those on locked and load. But when they go back to her house, she's like, wait, the guns are gone. She's like, wait, this thing, I gave it away. No, this mirror, like, it was sold at a guard. This toy I was given to my cousin 2 years ago. I'm like, wait. I was like, so time moves differently in the Upside Down. But then you look at her journal entry and it's like 1983. And she says it's specifically the night Will disappeared. So I was like, okay. So it seems like the moment a doorway is opened, the time in that space stopped, because for whatever reason the Upside Down stopped at 1983. So I guess the moment, like, time from the other world, like, maybe it's like almost like an energy thing, that let's look at the Upside Down as the negative energy and look at the regular world as a positive energy. When a gate opens, that positive energy is flowing into the negative energy, and maybe it kind of cancels itself out and becomes like neutral. And so that whole energy created a field of I guess at that point, the Upside Down became even more of a pocket dimension, because obviously it's existed before now, as we learned later on in the episode, as Dustin already theorized previously, just because of, Vecna killed back in 1959, which once again, we'll get to that later. But you add all that into the fold, into the mix. So, but once again, why 83? And that's the thing, like, I guess because there's always been some tie, some connection ever since the doorway was open. Well, because I think the doorway was open the entire time of season 2, wasn't it? So it was just it was open. It was never fully closed. So it was open the entire time. And obviously at the end of season 2, even when they closed the gate, some part of the Mind Flayer was still here. So it makes you wonder, did time actually, no, because she still said it was the night, Will disappeared. So if time had continued moving again, even just a little bit, there would be more entries in it. So it's like, yeah, I guess the moment the gates are open, the world permanently freezes in that regard. Once again, just tiny tidbits here and there we're learning about the Upside Down. We have never really dived into that, because once again, the person who spent the longest time here, time frame wise, would have to be Joyce and probably Hopper when they were looking for Will. So no one's been in there long enough to fully study it. I think our main protagonists are lucky enough because they didn't run into anything. Well, I guess because a lot of the Demogorgons ended up dying back in season 2. I think so. Maybe that's. Did it go like? That's why I keep trying to remember. Did all of the kids and Steve go to the Upside Down in season 2? Because I remember all the Demodogs, which there was also the one that Dustin had taken as a pet. They all ended up dying. So, but I don't remember if that was in this side of the door. I'm pretty sure that was. I don't think they were in the Upside Down. I think they were just in underground tunnels. But maybe they were in the Upside Down. I don't remember. I don't think so. Either way, it's a world that's still never been fully explored because it's so dangerous. But like I said, we saw those bat things around, but no Demodogs or Demogorgons, so most of them must have died out, because those bats are acting as the eyes and ears of that world, so why are no demogorgons around? Not unless they're in different parts of the town, but like the fact is they didn't run into a single one. Maybe that's what that's supposed to, signify. But either way, at Nancy's house in the Upside Down, on the flip side, in this plane of existence, Dustin, Lucas, and Max were brought there, and now they're being questioned by Powell, and it's like this back and forth about like, oh, whether they're lying, whether they're telling the truth about, oh, where's Nancy? Oh, was Nancy with you? Yes, no. Yes, but then she left. Yeah, what were you doing out there? We were swimming. Like, did you know that, like, there's a killer on us? Oh, we didn't realize that we were so close to the lake. Yeah, we were wondering if it looked kind of familiar. But Erica calls him out, which I'm like, shut up, Erica, why are you ruining it? I mean, God, their lies are god-awful anyway, but Erica's, like, poking holes, like, oh, they're lying so hard that the, like, couch is literally on fire. It's, calling it out, saying this, oh, this is bullshit or something like that. So then Max gets interrogated by Powell, who's tired of like the back and forth between everybody. He's like, shut up. He's kind of been the cool, calm, collective person because he's the juxtaposition to Hopper, who gets very angry easily. So because like he had told Callahan last episode, it's like, no, keep it cool, calm. He's like, yeah, despite everything going on. He's like, yeah, despite everything going on, stay calm. So now he's kind of losing his cool. He's interrogating Max. Then Dustin and Lucas end up filling Erica in on stuff, but then she starts asking questions of like, right, why did another gate open up? And it's like, Elle didn't make this one or something like that. But then Dustin's like, yeah, she doesn't understand everything, but she asked a really good question. How was another gate open? Because we know that it wasn't, Elle who did it, and because the only two gates they've ever known to exist were the ones that Elle opened and the Russians opened last season. So how is the gates open? And I was thinking like, oh, was it Vecna that opened them? And technically it turns out that's the case because Dustin kind of figures it out that once again, what is your motive for killing these teenagers? And it's because their deaths fuel you. The more deaths the more kills. Because the more it's like absorbing the psychic energy of their deaths, getting stronger and stronger with each death. So, because now he kind of breaks it down to be like, right, the Demogorgon was the foot soldier. This all is in service to the Mind Flayer. So it kind of answers a question we've had for a while. Like, okay, so is he his own boss or does he serve the Mind Flayer? It seems like he's subservient to the Mind Flayer, and not unless he ends up being revealed to be the one behind everything, even the Mind Flayer. Like, oh, the Mind Flayer thinks it's in control, but in actuality he is. I don't think so. We'll see, but yeah, everything is in service to the Mind Flayer. At least is how Dustin's currently theorizing things. So luckily, using the lights, they were able to contact everyone in everyone in the Upside Down used what Will was able to do using the lights. And I don't think we ever saw how Will did it, did we? I think this is the first time we've ever seen representation of what that looks like. Because like, I guess maybe there's like a natural energy that circulates around light sources in the Upside Down, like how like light sources in our reality versus the Upside Down. Because in that moment, Nancy and them, like, they see this like floating red dust energy, and they move their hands through it, and they're able to manipulate the light, making it brighter, dimmer, and they ended up sending out an SOS. And Dustin and them were able to create they were able to use Nancy and Mike's little sister's toy to make a means of communicating between both worlds. And it's like, cool, they found out what's what, and Dustin kind of informs them that, right, Vecna, every killing spot is a new gate. And I didn't even let that cross my mind, because the agents that work for Owens, they went to Eddie's place and they told his uncle to leave because there was a scar, like there was still an aftermath on the trailer, and it didn't even correlate in my head of like, oh, like there's signs to so much of this finale were like ready, like already set up, and I just didn't even they've been planning this out. Like, they've been like giving you everything little by little over time, but still. So luckily they got on their bikes and managed to get to Eddie's house at the same time. In our world, the kids, including Erica and they all ended up getting on their bikes. And I love Erica slashed at their tires. She's like, yeah, this is going to be like a misdemeanor at best or something like that. And they ended up taking off. I don't know why Callahan had to be big. He's like, hey, kids, knock, knock. Like, he was acting so weird and creepy. I'm like, why do you have to go to them like that? I think referring to him was like he was the big bad wolf and they were the little piggies or something like that. So they managed to get away, and obviously their parents are almost like, where are the kids going? Why are they doing all this crazy stuff? They get to Eddie's place, and then ultimately there it is, the portal, and it's just like, once again, the trippiness of while they were biking, we were flipping to the upside down and seeing the other group bike there. So now it's like, oh, here's the portal, and so they're looking up and then on the other side, the kids are looking up at them, and I'm like, I love the camera work and how trippy this whole thing is, because we never really gotten to get to see it experience, you know. But once again, as this show is going on, they've been able to expand and explore like the trippiness of it all. So they end up, Robin goes through, and then so does Eddie. And it was supposed to be Nancy and Steve next, but then the moment Nancy goes through, like, she starts falling into a darkness. You're like, damn it, Vecna got her. And in that moment, the moment she landed in the pool, I was like, yep, that's the thing she has the most guilt about, is Barbara. Once again, I believe, because she cares about Steve, yes, but also she had regrets about, like, right, she didn't want what happened to Barbara to happen to Steve either, because that's still been her biggest regret. And it's like, oh, like, at least when I kill people, I own up to it. Because the sad thing is, Nancy was too busy having sex with Steve while Barbara was getting super murdered outside. So that sucks. Well, because this is her first time seeing it, right? Because she never saw Barbara's body, if I remember correctly. Because the person who saw Barbara's body was 11 back in season 1 when they were trying to find Barbara. And so, 11's seen it, but this was the first time Nancy saw some sort of representation of it. So I think it's so interesting that Vecna has taken a vested interest in Nancy too, because he's saying like, oh, you're so close to the truth. Because once again, like, her investigations have, like, she does have the right instincts, and her investigative skills have pointed them in the right direction, knowing that this is all tied to Victor, because obviously this dates back to everything with Victor Creel back in 1959. So, all the while that's happening, we also have simultaneously everything happening back at the Nina Project. And so, that general ended up finally breaking that guy, Agent Wallace. And he's like, right, fine, I'll give you the information. Just promise me you won't kill the girl. Because, well, for one, it's like, right, that little girl doesn't deserve to die, and that's kind of messed up, killing a little girl. Two, he knows, I guess he still believes, like, no, that little girl is our salvation. She's the only means to an end. Means to end all this. He should probably also explain that little girl can't be the killer. She doesn't have her powers. But the lieutenant colonel, he probably won't listen. He'll probably be like, that's beside the point. He's like, oh, you're lying, you're covering, or you guys think she doesn't have her powers when in actuality she does, and she'd be doing all. Like, that guy's not going to listen to Wallace. So, once again, I get the feeling like now that Wallace has served his purposes, they were torturing and keeping him alive. And he held out for as long as possible, but eventually torture is going to wear you down. So he ended up, I'm sure they're going to end up killing him afterwards. So he's not just going to be able to walk away after all this. But nevertheless, 11 seems to be taking steps backwards rather than progressing and getting closer to controlling her powers again. What seems to end up being the case is she's taking a step back because she remembered last episode, right, oh, that memory of I killed all of my siblings and a whole bunch of orderlies and guards and staff at the lab, so that worry about becoming a monster scared her, and she, but her dad was like, right, you need to kind of be whole again. You might not want to be whole, and that's your choice, but I'm asking you, you trusted me, and before, I need you to trust in me one last time. And so he gets the footage from the day the incident happened, and 11 is kind of in, well, because this is after the fact, but Was that, once again, stuff is blurring together. I think it was this episode, because this episode was, like, fairly long. It's basically the length of a movie. Like, this season's, like, episodes, I think, in general, have been longer, but this one was, like, an hour and a half, hour 45. And once again, it's just, because I heard some later episodes of this season get super long, so that's going to be wild when that comes out. But regardless, their papa found out about 11 getting hurt and brought everyone together, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna punish all. At first I thought he figured it was 2, just simply because the way 2 was talking, like, oh, she must have fallen. Literally no one else in the group opened their mouth. He was waiting for you to open your mouth, because the moment you did that, solidified your guilt. And he's like, right, if she said anything, she's lying. The sad thing is 11 said nothing. All she needed, like, you confirmed your own guilt. Once again, very similar to the Angela thing. So once again, now you see, once again, I brought it up previously, but now it makes a lot of sense, like, why she had that reaction, because it triggered something deep within her that she didn't realize was there. Yeah, but it's like, it was a deep, repressed memory that kind of came to the forefront because of Angela treating her the same way. Not only 2, but others of her siblings, but 2 was kind of the head honcho, being like the lower number, and was potentially the most powerful, but in actuality, it's 11 who's the strongest. So then you had that orderly saying, like, right, the moment 2 gets out, him and the others, they are going to kill you, because after it was all said and done, which showed you just how rough Brenner could be. The fact is that he electrocuted 2 like that, to the point 2 had to get some medical, like, looking after the fact. So, like, he went hard in the paint and punishing. I was almost thinking 11 was going to stop it, but she was too scared, because it's like, right, she didn't want that. She just wanted, like, what they were doing. She just wanted to be left alone. She didn't want to be hurt, but she also didn't want 2 getting hurt like that, because it's like, right, if that can happen to him, that can happen to any of them. And she'd already been hearing from the orderly that her papa wasn't the greatest person either, so. But he allowed her to escape. He ended up giving her the key card to get out of here. He's like, yeah, because if you don't, 2 and the others are going to come. And they're like, do you know why they were able to get out? Like, your papa wanted all of this. You know why the security camera went out? And I'm curious, like, is that true, or was Brenner being painted as even more of a monster than he was? He wasn't the greatest guy, but maybe he didn't go that far. It's hard to say. Because I wonder, jumping ahead a little bit, I wonder if our orderly friend here actually was the one responsible for it or not. And because he was lying and manipulating 11 the entire time. But the moment he was like, right, I need you to get out of here, I can't leave, and he looks, he's like, yeah, this thing is in my neck. I was like, the moment that got introduced, I was like, you're the monster. 11 is, under this entire time, 11 has believed herself to be the monster. No, she just ended up releasing the monster from its cage. And the moment the device got removed, I was like, yep. And he then took that opportunity to kill a few guards, but they're still pretending like he was on 11's side, and he proceeded to kill everyone else in the facility. Even his own siblings, which is kind of extra jacked up. And 11 confronts him, and he's like, right, you were supposed to wait. Like, what were you going to do? Change your clothes and pretend like everything was okay? How would you have explained all of her dead siblings? Well, as we find out, all of your dead siblings, because he is number 1. I was like, dude, I should have freaking known. Like, the way he was talking about it, I was like, he had to be 1, but I figured, like, his powers must have been on a fritz or something. It's like, no, Brenner sealed away his powers because Brenner knew how dangerous he was. The fact is, he never did it to any of the other children. I think that speaks volumes to, well, because we get more context of why 1 was treated that way in comparison to even 11 being as powerful as she is. And then I really, really thoroughly appreciate the back and forth as the revelations tick out. As I should have stuck to my guns. I had a feeling that Orderly was going to end up being Vecra, but I thought, like, okay, like I said, my theory was that Vecra was an entity that, yeah, this guy got sent to the upside down and got possessed, which is not the case, but I was right in thinking that they were one and the same. But the 59 thing kept throwing me for a loop, and then we get the freaking reveal. Victor's son, Henry, was responsible. I was like, the moment, like, Nancy saw that and we saw him looking down, I was like, that was him. He's been behind everything. like I said, I suspected maybe like the orderly was one and that maybe he might be Vikram. That was, but I always kept backing off of that theory. I got blindsided by the Henry because the 59 stuff like took me for a loop. I'm like, that didn't make any sense to me. Now it does. He's always had powers, and it seems like he's always been seen as like weird, off, or different. So, and when he moved into the Hawkins house, that house, he connected with spiders, and he grew to like understand them of like, right, they're this apex predator in their ecosystem to basically bring balance. And he looks at his world and is like, yeah, there's so much like imbalance and everything, and he wanted to bring balance to it. And he's the one that made his family like, oh, my family aren't good people. Look at the nightmare fuel I'm able to supply them with. He's also the one who was killing the animals because of, once again, first true blue signs of a psychopath, right? This sociopath or psychopath is killing animals. So it's like, right, okay. So knowing that he was causing that terror, knowing that he killed his mom, that he killed his sister, and because he killed his mom because his mom somehow figured out it was him, and she got a doctor, Dr. Brenner, so like that's how that all kind of fell into place. So you have all of that, and it seems like he intentionally left his father alive. I thought like, oh, because he said like, oh, I didn't know my limits. But after he did what he did, he ended up passing out. And the reason why his dad survived is he wanted his dad to suffer. You're like, wow, making your dad, because his dad's under the impression like, yeah, my son died a week like after being in a coma. For one, I thought like, oh, that's interesting. Like, why was your son in a coma? Why wasn't he just straight up dead? Because no one ends up just in a coma after that. So that was the telltale sign there. And kind of circling that back to the whole thing at the facility, I kept being like, oh, was Vecna the one behind all of that? But I wasn't sure how the timing worked out. Because I could never remember whether they showed you everyone's eyeballs or not. They showed you everyone's bodies were contorted, which seemed like a very Vecna thing. But I think, and maybe they showed you early on and I kept missing it, but I feel like it wasn't until this episode they thoroughly showed you some of the people's eyeballs. I think maybe some of those people's eyes weren't popped like Vecna normally goes after people, so I think that would have made it a little clearer, because up until then it made you still go like, could it have been 11? Which now in retrospect it makes sense, him having some like, because all of them have relatively the same powers to some extent, like that telekinesis, and it's like, right, you being able to do that Lieutenant Colonel is saying like, oh, it had to be 11 doing all this because of her powers, one being just like her. Well, granted, he can go a little deeper than her, like her power is just pure like telekinesis, but it does push even further than telekinesis just because of what she can do when she really pushes herself. But he can get inside of people's minds plus use the telekinesis on them, so he's kind of got like a double whammy with his power. But it's like, yeah, like when people's bodies are crumbling like that, it should have been proof of like, right, that's what he's doing. He's using his telekinetic powers to break people's bones and stuff. So, and once again, he's taking after the attributes of a spider, which basically traps its prey into a web and then kills them. So now we also understand like what the spiders are about, his obsession with the role that they play in the ecosystem. He found commonality with them in that, right, the world is wrong and we have our role to play in it to fix it. Because he's like, everything and every aspect about this world is wrong and it needed to be fixed, as he was trying to explain it to 11. And now we also know, because that's also what makes him so powerful too, is he's a natural born. Every other subsequent subject and sibling was a byproduct based on recreating what he had. So, because he just naturally had these abilities, and so everything Brenner did was to reproduce that. So I guess that also explains why Brenner was torturing him like last episode or whatever. It's because of the monster that he is on the inside, and it's like, because he probably knew like, right, I don't want you talking to 11. It is kind of interesting. Why would you, I guess you needed to keep him inside and keep him docile, so you gave him, I think that's kind of interesting. I guess you tortured him for getting so close to 11, but you put him in a position where he could be. Maybe Brennan was thinking like, right, if I tame you enough, keeping a lion locked in a cage, eventually you'll become subservient. But I think it's just kind of like what one was saying, or Henry rather, was saying that all Brenner wanted was someone that he can control, and he couldn't control one. That's why he took such an interest in 11, because she could be someone, out of all the children which he can control, 11 was that special one he could. Granted, one got inside of her head first, but one's whole thing is about finally being free from the shackles of not only this prison, but the prison of this world. So that's why he's probably all about the Mind Flayer's plan of like destroying this world, because it's like, right, we can rebrand, like this world could be reborn into something beautiful, into something right instead of wrong like it is. Guy's just not, he was treated like an outsider and feeling like he doesn't belong in this world. You know, everything he went through, and the power corrupting him. It's just, the kid wasn't right in the head to begin with. So, but 11 wouldn't join him. In fact, she fights him, and in the end, he is stronger than her, and he was in a process of about to kill her. Her bones were starting to break, but because she was focusing on every bad memory, whether it was like, okay, him manipulating her, two and the others, like messing with her, and her mom being taken from her, she was using that as fuel, but it wasn't enough. And in the process of him killing her, it seemed like her mind like tapped into a memory of the day she was born and her mom saw her, and she tapped into that power, and she ended up sending one to the upside down where he became Vecna. So now we make sense, because I don't think, maybe, because when he goes in like, oh, what have you done? Does he know that one was the one behind this? To be fair, the door knocked him out, so when he woke up, everything was already over. So he probably did blame 11, so he was looking at her as a monster the entire time. Once again, she wasn't a monster. She never has been. She's just the girl who sadly trusted the wrong person. And, you know, it kind of happened a little with, obviously with Papa again, but especially in this case. So the fact is, oh, this is an evil you faced before is even more prevalent than you think. This is one of your siblings. This is your kin that ended up becoming the major bad guy. So once again, the question then becomes, how much was Brenner under the impression like, oh my God, she did do this. Oh, what happened to one? Did he escape? Did 11 snap and kill him? Because the cameras were probably out at the time, so no one else was able to witness everything that went down. Or did he always know that it was one and he just needed her to get there? Because once again, the truth had to come to her naturally with some aid from them. But if it's like, if they tried to force it too much on their own, granted they still have to because they need her to get her powers back now. And now she knows the truth about everything. And so, once again, it's neat to know how much was set in motion. And also knowing that her first time opening a gate wasn't at the beginning of season 1. It was actually before that. A couple years, in fact, before that, when she got rid of one. So, a monster of his own making, but kind of a monster of her own making, too. So, just sad thing of her opening a gate 2 times has kind of led to tragedy. So she'll probably still blame herself to be like, right, a lot of this is still on me. I'm the one that set so much emotion. To be fair, it's still Brenner's responsibility because he set so much emotion. So it's going to be interesting because the worlds are colliding on many different fronts on that front, especially when it comes to the Nina project, because we know that they have coordinates and everything, so Mike and the others are on their way, but also the Lieutenant Colonel knows about it too, so he's definitely going to be on his way there as well. Nancy is stuck with Vecna, and now she knows the truth, so they're going to have to try and get her out of these circumstances. The town of Hawkins is in the state that it's in right now, which other than the parents, we didn't really dive into Jason and his crew as well as the rest of the town looking for Eddie, so which they wouldn't have been able to find Eddie, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us when season 4 of Stranger Things returns. That's going to be on July 1st. I think I saw someone saying July 2nd, when I was Googling it before, but I think even at the end of I think it said July 1st. July 1st or 2nd, but I'm fairly certain it's July 1st. So I'm And we're not going to have to wait long, very much like Ozark Part 1 and 2 of the final season. We're only going to have to wait like basically a little over a month, but I am very, very excited to see where the rest of season 4 takes us. Once again, I'd assume that the rest of the volume 2 of this season is just going to be 7 episodes as well, but like I said, I was reading somewhere that I want to say it's like episode 9 in particular, like some of those episodes we're definitely getting into Marvel movie length territory. Like, I think there's going to be like 1 or 2 episodes in the second half of the season that are going to be like over 2 hours, like maybe 2.5. So it's wild. You're getting like feature length film episodes. So that's definitely going to be interesting. Because I was wondering, like, could the second half of the season be shorter because some of those episodes are longer? They are squeezing a lot. Once again, they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink into this season. So it's now I'm sitting here thinking about the Vecna thing even more so, like, right, it leans into the Freddy thing even more because it's like, oh, you were ostracized, you were different, you were kind of judged for something, and everything led to you becoming the monster. I mean that's kind of, I think, a story that many stories kind of pull from that thing of like, oh, things led to you becoming the big bad, becoming the monster in the end. So either way, I'm excited for Stranger Things to return in July, so... But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.